Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to International Affairs, 1st of January 2026, broadcasting live from Dhaka's Gulshan studio. And of course, I am proud to be hosting the very first show of this year on International Affairs. Before I begin the important updates from around the globe and of course in our country, I want to introduce my panelists here today. In the studio, we have Advocate Mohsen Rashid, who is a senior advocate and jurist for the country and of course President of the Bangladesh Muslim League. Of course, I welcome him on this program.
Thank
and it is a pleasure to see you on the very first day.
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you so much.
And also to Norman, if he's listening.
And as well as Norman Floyd Barnes, who is our geopolitical correspondent, joining us from Washington, D.C. But before I begin the topic today, I want to understand with Advocate Mohsen Rashid, as we are also observing a 3-day mourning for a late Prime Minister Begum Khaleda Zia, who has had a huge funeral procession. Even yesterday, I was here talking about this issue. I want to begin with Mr. Mohsen Rashid. We know that a 3-time Prime Minister, as well as the first lady in a position of Prime Minister for Bangladesh, she had passed away at 6 a.m. on the 30th of December. And we see that many international dignitaries have arrived yesterday and was there at Manik Mia to observe this funeral, as it's a huge event that has happened. And we know that to some level, even the New Year celebrations have been voiced down because we are all observing a 3-day state mourning. The black flag has been hoisted on all the media channels out there. I want to begin by asking you, what is your take? The nation has lost a great leader. Today, we will see a nation that is going through a power vacuum because of the lack of powerful leadership.
Good afternoon and very happy New Year to all those who are listening. Well, that was a big event, and perhaps in the history of Bangladesh, we have never seen such a crowd. Forget about the namaz, the funeral. It was a huge crowd. Even in public meetings, we have never seen such a big crowd. I mean, this crowd was as deep as 5-6 kilometers, to say the least. Yes, a vacuum has been created. It's a big loss for the nation. She was a unifying force for the country. She did a lot for the country. I mean, especially if we look at her achievement, her most important and signature achievement, I would say, is in education, where free education was during her governance. Free education was being given up to primary level, and thereafter for girls it was up to the secondary level, and meals were also introduced during her time. So that, I can say, is a singular achievement. I will not say that going from presidential to parliamentary form is a great achievement, because that was the agreement that the political parties at the time had with amongst themselves.
Yes.
When they were staging a movement against Ershad. So that's not 1989. But another very important thing that she has done is, when there was an agitation during her rule, she introduced in Parliament the 13th Amendment to the Constitution for a non-party caretaker government.
Right.
And that was done by her, keeping the constitutional mandate and constitutional continuity. It was not that she did it without that. So many people say that the February elections in which she was elected and became Prime Minister for the second time was illegal and so on and so forth. The Awamis regularly talk of that, that there were rigged elections, of course, in which the Awamis did not participate. but nobody says that those elections, even BNP has not defended those elections. Those elections were done only to keep the constitutional continuity and to bring in the 13th Amendment, which was a demand of the opposition. This was not a demand of the BNP. So when she saw this demand, that people at large are supporting this demand, she being a Democrat, she was a Democrat, and being a Democrat, she decided that yes, I should yield to this demand of the people. So that is why she held that February elections, and within 2 months, she resigned by bringing in this constitutional amendment, because you need 2/3 majority to do that.
Right.
So that's also a great achievement, that she was a Democrat and she did this thing democratically.
Of course, we will all wish that the Almighty grant her a very nice room in heaven. Of course, there was a lovely inclusion of her contributions to society from Advocate Mohsin Rashid. However, we have our geopolitical correspondent Norman Floyd Barnes joining us from Washington, D.C. I know it's a very happy new year to you, sir. I know that it's the very first day of the year. There are multiple updates regarding the U.S. Congress, the U.S. Senate, as well as debates including the Republican Party as well as the Democratic Party. I would want to give you a notice of one. The mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani is set to take oath in a swearing as a mayor from January 1st, which is today. So, of course, this is a new transitional time for the city of New York. And also there are other updates, as I'm sure. I want to come to Norman Floyd Barnes. What is your update on the very first day of the year?
Greetings from Washington, D.C. Today is the first day of 2026. All three time zones has now reached the first day of the year. I spoke to my family in California, wished them a happy new year. So today is a holiday, of course. So we're starting out the new year with the mayor he took the oath 2 minutes after midnight East Coast time in a subway station in New York City. So we have a new mayor in New York City, the first Muslim mayor, and he's officially the mayor of New York City now. So we have that in place. And at the same time, the federal courts has ruled that our president, in use of the military troops in Los Angeles, several other cities in the United States, was ruled illegal. So he has to remove these troops immediately. And these are the two main topics right now, in addition to the situation in Yemen. We had another attack, boat attack, and we're still following this situation with Russia and Ukraine.
An amazing introduction to your segment regarding the world updates. I want to have another question towards you. I know that the U.S. President Donald Trump announced that the National Guard will be removed from Chicago, Los Angeles, and Portland. What he cites described as significant crime reduction in those cities due to its presence. But previously, we have seen a huge number of immigrant population being deported. A massive deportation program had been held in the last 12 months of his presidency in his second term. My question towards this, we know that people of Portland was coming out at night in breaking of these rules in front of the National Guard. There was some social media interference regarding this. I just want to understand how you felt about Donald Trump's latest decision on January 1st, 2026 on removing of the National Guards.
Actually, the decision wasn't his. It was ordered by the courts. The courts ruled that his action was illegal, and they had to stop immediately. So his option is to bow out gracefully, stating that we will agree and adhere to the law, and we will move the troops from these areas, and we will circle back and come back with a better plan next time.
That was a lovely discussion regarding Donald Trump, and of course the courts who have ordered for the removal of the National Guard troops. Just a couple of days ago, we've seen a shooting incident of one of these National Guards in America, in Washington, D.C. itself. And of course, ever since then, the motive, the morale between these National Guards have been at an all-time low. I want to come back to the studio with Advocate Mohsen Rashid. You see, when we talk about international issues or any kind of international issue, there is one common character or one common administration that keeps on reappearing. That, of course, is none other than the U.S. administration, which is currently led by Donald J. Trump. My question would be regarding Venezuela. We've seen how the U.S. and Venezuela have shared hostilities. They have eradicated some of these narco-trafficking boats from international waters. Some skeptics are saying that this is a flagrant violation of international law. On the other hand, the U.S. administration is seen complicit in helping Israel in its genocide towards Gaza. So once again, this rhetoric of how the U.S. administration finds itself almost in all kinds of confrontations across the globe. But my question towards you would be regarding Venezuela. We know Nicolas Maduro has signaled that he would step down in 18 months. That was after receiving lots of pressure from the United States government. And we've known that every now and then we're hearing about oil tankers being seized in the Caribbean Ocean. What is your analysis regarding this, given that we begin a new year? Do you think that there will be heightened military tensions in that region?
Well, if you seek my opinion, I would say that Russia and China have an involvement in Venezuela. So, seizing of tankers so far has been much easier, but if he would continue with this, I think he has by now seized about 3 tankers.
Yes.
So, there is a likelihood that there could be some intervention from Russia and China, because if they are buying oil like China, if it's buying oil from Venezuela, it might escort those tankers which move towards China. And I don't know if Maduro has requested Russia or not, but oil exports may halt for the time being. However, having said this, we don't get to hear much about Venezuela and other countries in the South Hemisphere, but nonetheless, I know this much, that Maduro government is not simply relying on export of oil. They have diversified their exports also. So that way it would not affect the economy too much if Trump continues with his activities. He wants Maduro to go, and that is one of the reasons why they have hoisted a lady and got her the Nobel Peace Prize.
Accurate.
See, it's all political, because they want to show her as the figure in opposition. Because right now in Venezuela, there is no opposition leader which can unify the country. So this lady has been given this Peace Prize to hoist her as a presidential candidate who can replace Maduro. That's the whole game plan of Trump. I don't know how far he will be successful, because if he sends boots on the ground, then I think he will be trapped. So no boots on the ground, and I don't think if he's going to do that. Problem is that the Secretary of State is not a good diplomat, and he is creating most of the problems in the State Department. So Rubio, I think, may have a short life, maybe another year or so, and he too might be replaced, as Trump had to replace his Secretary of State in the first term also. So let's see how far they go. Things are not good, neither on the southern hemisphere nor in Europe.
Yes.
All the Europeans today are more or less signing on to anti-Trump document.
Because they understand Donald Trump's position regarding Ukraine. and Russia. Ladies and gentlemen, we know Advocate Mohsen Rashid was, of course, talking about the lady Maria Corina Machado, who actually was awarded the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize for authoritarian for the democracy against the authoritarian government of Nicolas Maduro. My question will now come to Norman Floyd Barnes. There is an update which I want to share before I ask my question. The U.S. conducted kinetic strikes against 3 alleged narco-trafficking vessels in international waters, according to the U.S. Southern Command, Southcom. And of course, the Southcom said the Joint Task Force Southern Spear carried out lethal kinetic strikes on Wednesday on 2 other vehicles allegedly operated by designated terrorist organizations. I want to ask this question to Norman Floyd Barnes. What are the criteria of calling someone or labeling someone a terrorist organization? You know, if you look at the past, there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq and Iran, and that was not proven, and those countries were in some kind of military confrontation with the United States of America. Today, we are seeing eradication of these so-called alleged narco-trafficking boats, and without any kind of due process, they are being wiped out from the face of the earth. So I want to come back to you, Norman Floyd Barnes. How are you assessing the situation on the first day of the year?
Well, again, today my assessment is just like the last day of the year is arbitrary. Is a decision by the Trump administration to designate a problem, create a problem. You have a solution, create a problem for the solution. So what they're doing is basically they have designated this is a problem, so we create a problem around it so we can provide the solution. And the solution is basically to eliminate, create an environment where this is called a threat to the national security of the United States, call it crime, terrorism, anything you may. We have designated that this is a problem, something we don't want, so we make this a bad issue so we can utilize our resources to eliminate this. So right now, there's no one in the world that has confronted the Trump administration about their terminology, their reasoning, and questioning why they're doing it. So right now, you're seeing a lot of situation. We all know the situation is that Venezuela, Nigeria, they're all rich countries. So basically, we have decided, the United States, to inflict our interest in that. And we're using the military as a vehicle to penetrate these areas so we can have some type of impact. And more importantly, we need to have a presence in this area because we feel, the United States, that this is to our best interest to look at the resources that we can gain and control and manage from these areas to enrich the America First theme.
Of course, I understand that you were giving me this analogy on how the terminology that they are using regarding these issues should be addressed. I want to have a last question regarding this matter before I can go to a break towards Advocate Mohsen Rashid. As you were hearing that it is no longer a matter to ignore that the U.S. Administration has some kind of exploitation materialism going on in their decision making. Do you think that the people of America will live a better life or make America great again by denouncing the rest of the world? That's the process I think about it. Do you think that that would suffice in the long run?
No, not at all. It cannot. It cannot, because American industrial output is not anywhere near what China has. And by putting on these tariffs or import duties, you see, America doesn't win, America loses, because at the end of the day, it's the public, the consumers, who would go for things which are cheaper. They cannot go for things which cost much. So America will have to change its foreign policy, it will have to change its tariff policies if it wants people to support them. And by doing what they are doing, they in fact are alienating the American people instead of making America great again.
Yes.
So that's another problem. with America. The other problem
I
is
agree.
Even Norman Floyd Barnes also agrees with your comment.
All right, thank you.
Good. I concur.
Happy 2026. So,
Yeah,
you see,
let's make it so.
the other problem has been that they are having problems with Canada, for instance. That's a serious problem for them.
Right.
Because you see, medicine supplies come from two places, Mexico and Canada, which are cheaper to whatever they make in the United States.
Correct.
So that's another area where they are alienating the people. So, you know, on quite a few fronts, they are having problems. So I would say that as these elections are coming in the United States, the midterms in 2026, they could face a backlash. So that's how I feel, because people would not support them with such high inflation and high costs. And with the new mayor, let me also take this opportunity
Please.
of congratulating the new mayor from your studios and wish him all the best in his tenure.
Thank you so much for your wish regarding Zoran Mamdani in swearing in as mayor of the United States, the city New York. Of course, we have to go for a short commercial break. However, after the break, we shall discuss more updates regarding the multiple war fronts that we have to deal with almost on a daily basis.
সারা দেশে লাখো মানুষের কঠোর কর্মতৎপরতা ও নিষ্ঠায় এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন 16 কোটি মানুষের হাতের নাগালে। দীর্ঘ 30 বছর ধরে বিশ্বস্ততা ও দ্রুততার সাথে সেবা দেওয়ায় গ্রাহক সেবায় এখন শীর্ষে। বাংলাদেশে গ্রাহক সেবার সাফল্যের পর এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন বিশ্ব বাণিজ্য কেন্দ্র সিঙ্গাপুরে। আপনার যে কোনো পণ্য সিঙ্গাপুর থেকে বাংলাদেশে বুকিং এর জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন। এসএ পরিবহন প্রাইভেট লিমিটেড, লজিস্টিক্স পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, 22 রবার্টস লেন, সিঙ্গাপুর 218302। ফোন 0065 629 24900। বাংলাদেশ থেকে সিঙ্গাপুরে পণ্য বুকিং এর জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন ঢাকা সহ দেশের যে কোনো 80টি শাখা কেন্দ্রে। এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, আপনার সেবা সব সময়।
Welcome, Grand Palace Hotel, Dhaka. A majestic lobby blending timeless elegance with modern design. Experience 5-star comfort in suites and rooms.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to International Affairs Broadcasting from Dhaka's Gulshan studio. In the studio, we have Advocate Mohsen Rashid, while on Zoom, we have our geopolitical correspondent, Norman Floyd Barnes from Washington, D.C. I want to take the opportunity now to talk about Ukraine and Russia. This is no longer just a war, but this is the war of the era. I would say 3.5-year long war has been prolonging for such a time that it has caused global trade disruptions, caused displacement of internal people from Ukraine. But according to the media responses, I have a breaking story. The Central Intelligence Agency assesses Ukraine was not targeting a Putin residence in a drone attack, contrary to what the Russian side, the Kremlin side, has said. Of course, the Russia had publicly raised these allegations in which it said Ukraine attempted to hit Putin's home earlier on Monday, and Donald Trump told reporters that Putin had told him off of it over the phone. At the time, the president said he was troubled by the reported action, seeming to believe that the Russian leader, even as Ukraine strenuously denied it was behind such an attack. Today, this kind of stories are now bringing to the screens of the major media outlets, including the likes of CNN, BBC, and Al Jazeera. I want to come to Norman Floyd Burns. Ukraine-Russia issue is not a new issue, but it is an issue that is not stopping. And today, the entirety of the European Union and entirety of the nations that represent Europe, including NATO, are in a crossroads of understanding what is the warboard of US President Donald Trump. Earlier on the show, we were talking about how US has involvement on almost all the issues that pertain to global hierarchy. I want to ask you this question. Now that claims are being made between the two leaders that one has attacked the other's residence, even after the Florida meeting between Volodymyr Zelensky and US President Donald Trump, what is your observation and how do you see this situation unfolding in this year?
Well, this year will be a continuation of last year. The Trump administration has set a new policy about security and their involvement with international affairs. The new policy will be a lesser involvement of the U.S. military in the issues of other countries, particularly Europe, Ukraine. They're going to hand that over to NATO and the EU. The EU has a real problem now. They have a situation. They now are looking at their own defense at the same time trying to aid and help Ukraine. The United States is backing off. They're going to provide technical support. They're going to provide resources, but they're not going to put troops there. The United States is not going to put troops in Ukraine to support the ceasefire or the cessation of the war or whatever concessions they have, or most importantly, if the war continues, there will not be U.S. troops in Ukraine. Matter of fact, the U.S. troops in Europe is going to decrease, and it'll be putting back more to the Western Hemisphere and other parts of the world. In complying with the century-old Monroe Doctrine, we're going to be protecting the West back. However, Russia is putting the pressure on Ukraine. More importantly, let me change that. Russia is putting the pressure on the EU through Ukraine. Using Ukraine issue is that we can continue this war. We can put the pressure on, we have more drones. At the same time, we are repositioning and we are retracting and positioning ourselves to focus more on Europe. The Russian contingent just put hypersonic nuclear-capable missiles in Belarus with the intention of targeting the EU more quickly and without any interruption. They also are now dealing with the Baltic Sea, and they are dealing with other issues about immigration. So all indications lead that this invasion, this process dealing with Ukraine is not Ukraine, is more importantly facing Europe. Either way, if we go into a ceasefire and we have a safety zone and they come to some type of conclusion in Ukraine, this pressure will continue on the EU. So the EU has to now readjust. They have to build up their defenses, and they have to understand that even though we may come to some type of settlement, stabilization in Ukraine, and they're not going to give up the land they have, Russia's intent is Europe. They want to control and deal with Europe. So this persistence of drones attacks, undersea cable attacks, cybersecurity, and probing. They're now talking about they're focusing on reaching submarines and cable into the British territory, the Baltic, the Arctic areas around there. So this activity has a long-term mission of EU, the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, the Russian Federation is focusing their efforts on total domination of the whole continent.
A lovely observation from Norman Floyd Burns in Washington, D.C. We understand that he picked out the Monroe Doctrine, in which it states from 1823 by James Monroe. So this is very prehistoric kind of a document which says the U.S. neutrality in Europe, the United States would not involve itself in European wars or internal disputes. The Americas and Europe were to be treated as distinct political spheres. So that it is a very distinctive separation of the both. As Norman Floyd Barnes was saying that right now Europe seems to be in a very destabilizing situation where NATO has come to the point of increasing everyone's defense budget to 5% of their GDP until 2035. That day did not come without any kind of speculation. My question towards you regarding this issue would be, if Europe did not find the help and the support of Donald Trump and or the American people, how would they be countering Russia, given that nations such as Belarus are right next to Russia, who is propagating the ideology of the Kremlin?
Well, they are old friends, and Belarus has stood by Russia all through. Even the Hungarians have supported the Russians. The Hungarian
Yes.
Prime Minister, he is very vocal, and he has visited Moscow a few times. Now, coming to the Monroe Doctrine, well, whatever they said during those days, they have not adhered to it because they participated in the First World War
And as well as the
and
second.
also the Second World War with the Europeans, you see.
Yeah.
So let's not
Yeah.
forget that, whatever the doctrine. So the other point is, as long as you do not contain the Jews, the hawkish Jews, the Zionists, peace will not be restored. You see, the problem is, you see, now Israel has gone to Somaliland.
To recognize as the first nation.
Yes, and they are building their bases there, the Israelis. Do you
Yes.
think they are doing it without the support of the American administration? They are not. Gaza, did they do it without the support of the American administration? No, because the Zionists support these politicians in the Congress and in the presidency with their wealth. So they fund them. Now, as long as the United States of America does not have an independent foreign policy, you will not have peace in this world. You see, because they are the problems, the Zionists. Zionists want to conquer right up to Saudi Arabia and other places. They have got this scheme that they will take over this land. And they are also thinking, you see, it's the history says that whenever these Jews in the Palestinian lands have taken control and have misbehaved with the population, they have been thrown out. They are thrown out by the Christians, they are thrown out by the Romans. You trace their history. So now also they will not succeed eventually. So problem is, the Russians are a big power, military power. And you must have seen that in Europe, they were testing their armaments. Americans tested their Abraham tanks or whatever they have. Then they tested their domes. Everything failed and it crumbled in front of the Russian armament. So without the American support, the Europeans are unable to help Ukraine. By no means they can help, neither financially nor with armaments. It's just not possible for them. So that is why Trump has said during his previous administration,
Right.
he was telling them to raise it to the 2 or 2.5% that was agreed upon.
Now which has
Now
gone
he
up to
has
5.
increased it to 5%. Trump wants them now to fund 5% of the GDP, individual GDP, into NATO.
And a nation like Spain has said, sorry, we cannot do so. They have
Most of
stuck
them
to-
cannot. Maybe Germany and France might be able to do it, not 5%, but
Right.
maybe they can go up to 4%. And what do you do with Greece and Spain and Italy and other countries, you know, they will not be able to do it. 5% of the GDP is quite a lot for them, because it's not that Italy being the third biggest economy in Europe,
Right.
it's not that they are doing too well. None of the economies are doing too well. So I would say that Ukrainians and Zelensky should go for peace, so that their people can live peacefully and in harmony. Otherwise, things are looking very bad for Ukraine without American support, and I do not think that this administration is going to support the Ukraine war as Biden did.
Right.
They will not do this. So
that's
that's my take on this.
That was a lovely take regarding this issue. However, Joe Biden, during his tenure before Donald Trump, he was very critical of the Nord Stream pipeline. I believe that politics and policy got in interference of this pipeline that would connect the two
Canada.
territories together of exports of the Russian oil mechanisms. I want to have another question toward Norman Floyd Barnes. You were telling us that Russia has publicly showcased deployment of its Oreshnik nuclear capable missiles in Belarus. This is a move which everyone sees as a strategic military posturing, raising alarm across Europe and about long-range strike potential. Given the first day of the year, I want to ask you, the Italian PM Giorgia Meloni also says that 2026 shall be met with a lot of war and a lot of destruction on both of these sides. And given that the fact that the World War II, the stage of World War II was set from Europe, and ever since then, today, nations such as China are celebrating the 80 years of its military advantage on a military parade that we've seen even last year. So I want to ask you, where do you think the world is going, and how do you think this one issue, Ukraine and Russia, is going to dictate the future days diplomacy and dialogue between these nations?
Thank you for that question. It requires a bit of forecasting, but based on previous activities and trends, it appears that we are about to do a repeat of 2025 with more intense skirmishes, conflicts, and issues. The only problem with that, with these conflicts and issues, the likelihood of a major global response, military response, has increased, meaning a black swan. I use the concept of black swan. You have a concept that you want to achieve, and then all of a sudden there's another situation that comes overlap that, and next thing you know, you're involved in a vortex which creates a war, meaning an unanticipated event happens based on your strategic plan that you didn't anticipate. So while we playing these games between the nations, positioning, putting weapons, there's a likelihood of there may be a mistake. And once the button is pushed, you can't pull it back. We're now using hypersonic missiles that can hit anywhere in the world. If we send one of them things off and it goes off, it's going to go. Nothing is going to stop it until it hits its target. And then the next thing you know, what is the response? Do you have to do a retaliatory response, or do you have to do your own response? And next thing you know, we got these buttons being pushed, missiles being shot, and we in a different type of war. We're looking at infrastructure being destroyed, looking at energy, we're looking at technology, and at last military. So the war, the issues we're concerned about is that these type of conflicts doesn't require to have a man, a person, a gun, or seeing somebody eyeball to eyeball. We are now dealing with artificial intelligence. One wrong calculation, one wrong move, we've been very lucky so far, will cause a catastrophic event globally. And then next thing you know, one person respond, another country respond because the other one did something. And to avoid them being, everybody's looking at the first attack.
All right.
The first hit. Let's get the first strike off because we don't know. We'll get the second one off. So we have to really look at that and be very careful. And we have to learn the art of communication, talking.
Right.
Things will happen, but we have to communicate.
Right. I must thank Norman Floyd Barnes for his take on all of these issues and for joining us on the program today on the very first day of the year. Ladies and gentlemen, we were discussing so many narratives that are readily available across the planet as well as here at home. Do stay with me for a short commercial break.
Sophisticated fine dining restaurant, crystal clear swimming pool for ultimate relaxation, modern gym and serene spa for well-being, perfect venue for corporate events, weddings and parties. Seamless and secured, elegant and eye-catching design. Indulge, relax, discover the first 5-star chain hotels in Bangladesh. Grand Palace Hotel Dhaka, 22 Kakrail, Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Welcome to Grand Club at Mirpur 10 Dhaka. Elegant spa and wellness facility for ladies and gents. Play pool and snooker in international standard billiard zone. World-class gym facility with exclusive equipment for man and woman. A restaurant of delicious local and international cuisine.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to International Affairs. I believe this is the last segment before we can end the program for today. In the studio, we have Advocate Mohsin Rashid, with whom I shall discuss the events of yesterday in Bangladesh. At this point of the show, we see that the late Prime Minister Khaleda Zia had passed away, and her funeral was marked in the ultimate significance of what a nation can do on the very last day to give a farewell bid towards this leader. But one of the things that I come to notice regarding this, regarding the funeral, when the notice was out that she had passed, the entire nation had gone into a mourning, and regional leaders had offered their condolences, some even appearing in Bangladesh. So I want to bring out those that have appeared, which include people, dignitaries coming in from other nations. It includes Nepal's Foreign Minister Balananda Sharma, Bhutan's Foreign Minister D.N. Dhungel, and at the Jatiyo Sanshad Bhavan yesterday. And not only so, External Affairs Minister S. Jai Shankar of India, as well as the Pakistan National Assembly Speaker Sardar Ayaz Sadiq. This attendance, it is not, of course, is beyond political maneuvering. Of course, even ousted members of the ousted regime had said they had offered their condolences. The nation truly did lose an uncompromising, unyielding leader. Of course, some will now try to politicize this funeral in the coming days of the Bangladesh politics. In the last, or ever since August 5th, 2024, we have seen the stance of India's media regarding Bangladesh. And ever since this funeral, if you would call it, or ever since the last month, we do understand the voice of that nation changing, especially because S. Jaishankar had come yesterday to attend the funeral, and he had not come alone. He had come with the letter of Narendra Modi towards Mr. Tariq Rahman, who is now the leader of Bangladesh Nationalist Party. My question towards you would be, we know that Bangladeshi people have faced the regime for almost 15 to 16 years, the ousted regime, and people had the numerous belief that they were being controlled, if not they were being guided or misguided by the leadership in India. And that very leadership is today sending a letter towards Mr. Tariq Rahman using his External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. How do you think, what is going to be the political narrative here? How do you think the coming days are going to be regarding the relationship of India and Bangladesh?
Well, you see, after Khaleda Zia passed away, Pakistan announced that their deputy foreign minister and deputy prime minister and foreign minister Ishaq Dar would come to attend the funeral. That was the announcement that was made. As soon as that was done, then India also said that they would be sending their external affairs minister. Now, you'll notice something. The names that you mentioned, they are all South Asian dignitaries or leaders, and they are all part of SAARC. All part of SAARC. Now, certain good things have happened. That at least the Pakistani speaker and the Indian External Affairs Minister, they shook hands, they spoke to each other. I don't know what they spoke, what was the conversation, but nonetheless, in diplomatic relations, even a handshake is very important.
Important, yes.
Very important.
Of course.
So that happened yesterday. Question is, a letter was delivered both by the Pakistani speaker and the Indian External Affairs Minister. Of course, the letter of the of Modi, which was delivered, is pretty long. It's not a short letter. It's pretty long letter, and he addressed Tariq Rahman as Tariq Rahman Sahib. So that's another good gesture that was shown by him, by addressing him as Sahib. Otherwise, he could have just said, "Dear Mr. Tariq Rahman," you know. So that was a good gesture. So the gesture shown by the SAARC regional countries is appreciable, because you have to understand one thing, that SAARC was the brainchild of Ziaur Rahman.
Right.
So since SAARC was the brainchild of Ziaur Rahman, they have great respect for BNP, the regional leaders. So I think they want SAARC to be revived. Of course, much depends on India, but it can be revived even minus India. That should not be a problem. Having said this, what impressed me was that almost all of the diplomatic missions in Dhaka participated in the funeral.
Of course.
All of them. And it was a very well organized funeral. So I think relations would improve, but the political side of the diplomatic side is all right. Political side will not improve. It remains where it is. India continues to support Sheikh Hasina, and they still treat her as the Prime Minister. They
Popular activist was killed. His killer apparently in India.
Yeah.
How to solve this issue?
They still support. You cannot resolve this issue so easily. And I have been hearing that Saima Putul is the heir apparent for Awami League and Sheikh Hasina, and she has recently travelled to Moscow and met Putin. She travelled with Arafat and 3 Indian diplomats. So these things are happening. It will not be a very easy sailing in our political arena. Then you have seen recently the Jamaat chief
going into a coalition with National Citizen
not the
Party.
coalition, going to London for a day to meet somebody from their intelligence agency.
Right.
Who is working on contract. I don't want to name that gentleman. I have named him quite a lot of times, so I refrain from doing that. But that is, he went to meet for a day. There was no necessity. I mean, they should have contacted him here. The High Commission could have done that.
Right.
But they did not do it because the station chief of RAW is operating not from Dhaka. Agnotri has left Dhaka. He's still in charge as the station head, but he's operating from Delhi. So, if he was here, maybe they could have conversed, they could have spoken. No. So, there are a lot of things which are going on, and we have to take notice of that. You must understand that Awami League or Sheikh Hasina is not out of the game.
Right. And
She's
I believe
very much in. She's very much in, and she's a very important player.
Of course, I believe that time being the constant in this argument, we still do not know what in the next 43 days we shall see, because of course after the 43 days we will see the election coming up, as well as the popular referendum that they have held. And of course these narratives and counter narratives should be analyzed properly. Ladies and gentlemen, as I draw closer, today is January the 1st, 2026. It is of course the first day of the year in which families around the globe are celebrating a oneness with one another, the closeness of family bonding, the understanding of family unity, and of course unity, respect and respect towards others. All of these